Thank you so much for joining us for this last ABC show. Our special guest is the romantic baritone that was also there for the very first Lawrence Welk broadcast, the handsome and talented Dick Dale. Welcome, Dick.
Thank you, Mary Lou.
So glad you're here. When you watched this show from 1971, did you have any idea back then that more than 30 years later you'd still be on the air?
We were all worried because we figured that's the end of the show. That's the end of the run. But then we got into syndication, and from syndication we got into PBS. And thanks to all the wonderful people out there, we're still on the air. And, well, as Lawrence would say, wonderful, wonderful people out there.
How did you ever get started singing and playing the saxophone?
Well, I was 11 years old in the 7th grade in the town of Mason City, Iowa. The music store there gave everybody in our school a music test. And, of course, everybody passed. And so I got to play the saxophone. And I don't know whether Meredith Wilson, that was his hometown, Mason City. I don't know whether he got the idea for Music Man from that, or they got the idea. But every time I see the show of Music Man, I think, I took that test, you know.
So did you listen to Lawrence Welk when you were a kid? I know he was on the radio.
Well, yeah, WNAX in Yankton, South Dakota was a very powerful station back there in Iowa, Algona, Iowa, and it came on, I think, around noon. It seemed like we were always sitting at the table eating and a Lawrence Welk show would come on.
Did you want to be a musician?
I really hadn't thought about it. I mean, I was, you know, what do you think about when you're 8 or 9 years old?
So do you remember your first job?
Well, I went to about 4 of us went up to this little town of Bancroft, and they had a dance every Friday night. And I'm standing in front of the band, watching the band, and they took a break, and I asked the band leader, I said, do you need a saxophone player? And he says, yes, as a matter of fact, he says, this young man here is going into service tomorrow. He says, you want to sit in? So I got up and sat in and tried out, and he says, that'll be fine. He says, you can join the band tomorrow and then start playing on Sunday. I said, okay. And I got home, and I woke my mother up. I said, I got a job playing on a band. She says, no, you don't. And I said, why have I been practicing all these years? And so we finally got it resolved, and I did join the band the next day. It was, and I was 16 years old, on the road, green as grass. It was a lot of fun, it really was. I got back home, and after I got out of service, and I was working a day job. And I said, this doesn't quite make it. So I called up my ex-band leader, and he said, well, I haven't got an opening right now, but he said, I think this band needs a man. So I joined this band and started playing again, and that was, I've been doing it ever since. It's been great, great career for me.
Now, Lawrence always said you came to him from Harold Loffelmacher and the Six Fat Dutchmen.
That's correct. New Ulm, Minnesota. It's a very German town, and I was with Six Fat Dutchmen. We did a radio broadcast every Sunday afternoon.
Was it a polka band?
Polka band, yeah. Well, it was a very big polka band in that time. And so we finished the broadcast on this Sunday afternoon, and the engineer says, you got a phone call here, Dick. And so I went in, and I, hello? He says, hello, this is Lawrence Welk. And so we agreed. I went into Chicago and tried out, and about 2 weeks later, I joined the band.
I hear you had an interesting first night with Lawrence in Clinton, Iowa.
Oh, well, when I joined the band, I didn't play clarinet. I mean, the first band. So I took up clarinet, and I joined Lawrence, and I was playing baritone saxophone, and with that went the bass clarinet, and I'd never played bass clarinet before. And very first night, we did a half-hour radio shot. Well, the reed section stood up with the clarinets, and I stood up with the bass clarinet. However, the bell of the bass clarinet stayed in the stand, and I'm standing there feeling ridiculous and looking ridiculous.
So you were there for the first Lawrence Welk broadcast.
Yeah.
What was that like? To be on television back in those years? Oh,
yeah. It was, that's when they had the magnifying glasses in front of the sets, you know, and no color sets, of course. But we did a show from KTLA in L.A., and Klaus Landsberg was the director and producer of the show. He never saw the rehearsal. He'd just come in, grab the script, go out in the truck, and shoot the show. And well, he was a very talented man. He was the first one to broadcast an A-bomb test out in Nevada. And that was, I mean, he was from Germany, and a very, very talented man. wonderful.
When the show went national in 1955, the whole country saw you.
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, of course, we were also excited about the thing, including Lawrence. I mean, the tempos were a little faster than usual. But we had, I mean, everybody, all of our families came down, so we'd be sure we had a good audience for the show. And it was exciting, because we'd been doing the local show at the Aragon Ballroom at Ocean Park from the bandstand, from the ballroom. And in this case, we went into a studio, and we were going coast to coast, you know. And it went great. We started out as a 13-week summer replacement, which turned into, how many years have we done this show?
It was an overnight hit.
And of course, I mean, the Dodge dealers, we were sponsored by Dodge, and they were very happy because I guess we were selling a lot of Dodges.
Did you really have a Dodge in your garage?
We had a Dodge in our garage every year. We just turn in the old one and get a new one. It was fantastic.
Did people start recognizing you on the street?
Oh, yeah. It was, I mean, you're in L.A., and I mean, that's a pretty big town. And you'd be walking down the street and somebody say, "Hi, Dick, how you doing?" You know, who's that? I don't know that.
What do you remember as some of your best experiences being on the show?
Well, I guess traveling. I mean, I worked in all 50 states. And we
a lot of years on the road.
A lot of years on the road, and we would, you know, play all the big arenas all over the country. But I think one of the most exciting things, we did Carnegie Hall, and that's a big mark for you. And then we played to a packed audience at the Madison Square Garden. And then I did, I think, 3 presidential inaugurals too. And that's, you know, I mean, that's enough right there.
That's very exciting.
It was really a lot of fun.
You've worked with a lot of celebrities through the years. Who are some of your favorites?
Well, we followed Perry Como in at Harrah's Tahoe, and he stayed over to see the show. And on that show, I did Crazy Guggenheim, and he came back and he says, "Dick, where'd you get that Crazy Guggenheim?" And I all I could think of was, he knows my name. I was just like, ah. And we did the Jack Benny show, and I got to sing his song that he supposedly wrote, "When you say, I beg your pardon, and I'll come back to you." And it was a funny show, and I was out there very young.
Speaking of funny experiences, I have a note that you emceed a show in Japanese.
I went to Japan, toured with Billy Vaughn about 4 or 5 years in a row, and the last 2 years I emceed the show. And it has to go back to, we lived in Northridge, and we went to this Japanese restaurant. This was before I went to Japan, of course. And I don't know why I asked, but this little gal had just come over from Japan, and she could barely speak English. And I asked, "What's the word for stupid?" She says, "Baka." And I thanked her, and we got to Japan, and they had the whole script written out phonetically, so I could speak Japanese. You know. But I got so tangled up, because it's a very difficult language, and I got so tangled up, and I said, "Baka," and the crowd just roared. So, well, after that, I left it in the show, of course.
After all those years with Lawrence Welk, what would you say you learned from him?
Well, he was really a very simple man, and his idea was give the people what they want. He says, if the little old grandma out in North Dakota doesn't understand that song, we're in trouble. And I believe when we went on Coast to Coast, they wanted to put a line of girls on and a comedian and everything. And he says, "No, I don't think so. We'll do it my way." And he did it his way. And well, the success that he had when he was alive, and he's still having the same success now, thanks to PBS.
We're so glad you've done it your way. You've been wonderful.
Thank you very much.